We constantly hear about how violent our society is, especially aggression in young males. But now it seems random acts of extreme violence by young girls are becoming more and more common. In fact, violent offending by 14 to 16-year-olds across the board has risen by 47% since 1999. The latest incident at Hamilton Girls High School yesterday afternoon has left 3 girls facing serious charges after a vicious assault on a fellow pupil. The 3 assailants, aged 15 to 16, allegedly kicked and punched a 4th girl, leaving her with a broken nose, fractured eye socket and cuts and bruising to her head. Now, we all shake our heads in disbelief. Then what? Are we treating this seriously enough? How should we actually address the aggression issue? Joining me now, Principal of Hamilton Girls High School, Marianne Baxter, and clinical psychologist Nigel Latter. Marianne Baxter, can you just fill us in what exactly happened at your school yesterday?
Well, what happened was that we had, as you said, 3 girls attack another girl, and from what we can ascertain, this was actually retaliation for an incident that had happened at a party or sometime after a party on Saturday night.
Which doesn't excuse it in your book, I presume.
No, absolutely not, and we're not at all pleased to find that it's a schoolyard that's been used to follow this through.
And it was, I mean, this wasn't, you know, a bit of roughhouse in the playground. This was a serious assault.
Yes, it was.
Have you noticed, as a principal, have you noticed increasing violence amongst girls?
I believe that we are dealing with that, but I think it's not just in schools. I think across society we have women responding in ways that appall me, that we're moving towards the worst of what we signalled in men, rather than perhaps looking for mediation or looking for ways where we can talk issues through.
Nigel Latter, I mean, do you agree? Are we seeing increasing violence amongst females?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think the notion that women are the gentler sex, we should pretty much abandon that. And certainly within adolescent girls, we're seeing more and more serious violent offending. And across the board, youth offending, there's more of it, and the assaults are becoming far more serious.
Nigel, is there a difference, if you like, in how men and women approach violence or how they mete out violence?
Well, I think there are some big differences between males and females, and certainly between the adolescent males and adolescent females there are differences in how their brains are put together. Girls have the part of the brain that connects the 2 hemispheres is a lot larger, and their emotional parts of their brain fire off a lot more too. So they're using a lot more emotional information, and their brain is working at a far faster level.
Marianne Baxter, look, I know you do take this seriously, but does the school have to accept any responsibility?
Not at all. We have an absolutely zero tolerance to bullying of any form of violence, and immediately this action occurred, we called in the police. We do not condone it in any way, and I have to say that the police acted really, really quickly and assisted us as we would hope they would.
Because you often hear people say there are no repercussions for kids these days. Do you accept that?
I think that's one of the things that perhaps the students believe, the young people believe, but I think that with yesterday's incident they are very clear, and I spoke with our whole cohort of Year 9 and 10s this afternoon and explained to them the process, because I think for some of them they don't realise that in fact the police are able to charge them and deal with it through the courts. Nigel,
of course, there's also talk at the moment of raising the age of full criminal responsibility to 18.
Yeah.
Is that sending the wrong message?
Well, I mean, I think that it's not just schools. Across the board, I mean, I think schools have to deal with what they have to deal with, and I think they often find their position is it's difficult to actually deal with these kids' behaviour, because across the board, what we're not doing is we're actually not holding kids accountable. And what we do in this world that's obsessed with being nice and supporting kids is if a kid does something bad, we give them counselling and support and help them work out their problems, which is all good, but we don't give them a reason not to be bad. You know, we give them reasons to be good with all this reinforcement and support. We don't give them a reason not to be bad, and that's half the problem. These kids know nothing will happen to them.
Marianne Baxter, I often hear principals say, look, we inherit a lot of problems from the home, that parents expect schools to fix everything up. But there's also the problem that I suppose could be faced in this situation. If you expel kids, where can they go?
that's one of the biggest issues that we're dealing with, because, I mean, obviously for each young woman in our care, we want to be sure that they do get a good education. And so the dilemma we have immediately ahead of us is that I have suspended 2 of these girls, and the third one I've been investigating today, and once I've met with the parents I will look at where we go from here. Now, obviously the board can decide if they wish that because of the behaviour they don't want to return them, and they're either excluded or expelled depending on their age. The dilemma we have, both in the school and with the board, is that where do they go? Because I don't imagine any other school is going to willingly want to have such behaviour in their school, and it is bigger than a school. I mean, we're just dealing with a societal issue, and the schools are just wearing it because that's where there's a large cohort of teenagers together.
Did they express any remorse?
They certainly seemed to understand once the police were involved that it had got extremely serious. Because the police came in so early and they were taken down to the station quite quickly, we didn't have the same amount of time. I would dispute slightly what Nigel's saying. I think that we are very much in the process of also educating our young people, and I think there's a very fine line we dance constantly between trying to assist them to take responsibility for their own behaviour and learn from that, as well as he says to put very clear boundaries around it. And I think that's the challenge that both parents and schools have.
Nigel, does that reaction come as a shock to you?
No, I think schools are in an incredibly difficult position, and I think he's a school that's responded immediately and responsibly to what is a pretty horrific situation. I guess my concern is at a far broader level. What we're not doing with teenagers is we're very good at providing resources and support and encouragement and education, all those sorts of things. What we're not good at is we're not good at the punishment thing, and punishment's become a very unfashionable word, and you say it and people grimace and become concerned that the young person's self-esteem may be damaged by that. But punishment actually works as part of a behaviour management plan. Punishment works to change behaviour.
So we're wimping out.
Well, I don't think that it's that schools are wimping out, and I don't think it's that the police are wimping out. But I think what happens is politicians and the world at large takes away the options that we have to actually punish kids now.
Well, of course, I mean, is there some irony in the fact that while we're berating youth for aggressive behaviour, we've had a cabinet minister in court this week on an assault charge for punching someone at Parliament?
I think it's absolutely farcical. They're spending millions of dollars that we could actually spend on saving kids on an ad campaign to tell us that violence isn't okay. Well, most of us kind of knew that, and the ones who don't know that don't care. And you've got cabinet ministers getting promoted for punching people. Well done.
Marianne Baxter, I mean, are there resources that you would like, I mean, not just at your school, because your school is not anything different from any other, but is there something that would help you deal with this as an issue?
Well, I think that, you know, we are being asked to deal with what society as a whole should deal with. First thing is we have to say, yes, we've got a problem, and be upfront about it. Stop, as Nigel said, stop sort of dancing around the edges. Say there's an issue and we're all going to deal with it together. I think in situations like this, your question where you said, where do these girls go? From our point of view as a school, our board's looking really seriously at trying to find some funds so that we can actually support students in some kind of extra way where, yes, they would be isolated from the rest of the population, and we would really challenge their behaviours and attempt to do some work there. Now, we have no funding for that, we have no room, we have no staffing, but somehow we're going to try and be creative and see if we can do something here, because we will not tolerate saying, no, we're not going to do anything.
Well, we look forward to hearing if you get any progress on that. Marianne Baxter, Nigel Latta, thank you both very much for joining us tonight.